Hello! So this evening we are going to take a flight in the JustFlight Fokker F28 Fellowship in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's a while since I've flown it, so I'm probably going to be quite rusty, but we'll see how we get on. So let's go and jump inside. Before we get going anywhere, let's have a little look at LittleNavMap. So the Fellowship doesn't have any fancy GPS, so we're going to be VOR hopping along the way using radio navigation. So we're going to take off from Exeter and we're going to fly over to London Southend. So I will pause recording during the more boring parts of the flight, because it's not the fastest aeroplane in the world and you don't really want to sit watching for hours of me trundling along in a straight line. So I will pause at opportune moments to keep it interesting along the way. Okay. So let's go and get this thing started up. Can I remember how to do it is the next question. So Control and 8 takes us overhead. I'm following the checklist I prepared ages ago, so the Fellowship has been updated, so we'll see if it goes smoothly or not. So battery goes to on. Then we go further overhead with Control and 9, and we go to the APU section, which is here, and we turn the main switch to on. An air conditioning section over here, and we're going to turn on the left main to on. So there's main. Okay, why are they already on? Oh, it means here, sorry. There we go, left main to on. My written instructions are not as good as they might be. So the APU section, second column at the top over here. Ensure 10 seconds has elapsed since the APU main went to on, and it will have done by now, and we can do APU start. So it's the big button here and it lights up. Okay, so then we can monitor the gauges up here, and we wait for 100% on the RPM, so it's just coming past 50%. When it gets to 100% we can go Gen 3 to on or up, so that's over here, so we're just waiting for it. This light should extinguish, it already has, so then this can go on. Then bleed air goes to on or up over here. There we go, and all of the valves open and it all looks good. So central pedestal, Control 7. Master radio section is at the rear on the right, and the radio master switches need to go to on. Then back overhead, Control and 8, the emergency exit lights at the bottom left. So we've got the emergency exit here, has to be armed. Windshield heating at the bottom right. If the outside air temperature is less than 20 centigrade, left and right go to low. So you've got windshield heating, so we're going to set both of them to low because it's fairly cold outside. Cabin altitude section, which is here. So we have to think in terms of our cruise altitude, so we come and look at the window here, and we use the bottom right knob to set it. So if we were flying at 18,000 feet, we're probably only going to go to 18,000 feet, so we don't need to do anything with it. Okay, so eyebrow panel in the middle, so let's press Control and 8 again to get that to go back to a normal view. In the eyebrow panel, that's this panel here in the middle, we're going to set the no smoking sign to on and the fasten seatbelt sign to on. Then we're going to go to the master control panel with Control and 2, which is the main control for the autopilot, and we're going to set nav1 to on or DME mode. So if we scoot over this way, I'm going to go there, and then nav2 to on or DME mode. And then the flight director in the center, we're going to set the mode selector to heading, and then the heading as required. So the takeoff runway at Exeter today will be, let's have a look at the wind at Exeter. We got 50 degrees 9 knots, so we're going to be taking off runway 08, so direction of the runway there is 77 degrees. So we'll go and move the heading bug, so we're watching this down here, to 77 degrees. So there's east, there's 60, 70, somewhere over there. So if we move the bug around, 77 is going to be somewhere around there. Okay. We're going to move the pitch command to 10 degrees, nose up, which I think is the first marker. So we can see, oh actually no, it's the second marker. So pointing straight up. And all that does is moves the reference for the flight director up, so we get it as a visual reference when we're flying. Course section in the centre, set nav 1 and nav 2 courses as required. So we are going to be playing a little bit of games with the if we imagine we're going to take off and fly in a straight line, so add waypoint, we're just getting that so we can get the bearing here. So 81 degrees to 113.35. So 113.35 will be our first radio frequency we're going to tune into. And we want this to be 81 degrees on the course. So, okay, so it's only just off the runway takeoff direction, to be honest, which is all good. So we don't need nav 2 configured at all yet. So then we go back to the cockpit and we can press B to calibrate or shortcut calibrating the altimeter. Press D to calibrate the compass in case it's not aligned, but it already is. And then we can use the altitude pre-selector. So we're going to go up to 18,000 feet, remember, today. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so then Control 7, and we zoom out slightly, or roll the mouse up. We want to go to the light section and turn the nav light to on. Then the ATC transponder section in the middle on the right is over here. And transponder mode should go to standby, so that's there. And squawk mode should go to C, which is there. And then we're preparing for engine start now. So we go over to the tablet, we close any doors that are open, there are no doors open, and we remove the chocks, which we have done. I'm just verifying on my controller the parking brake is in place. Engine gauges, Control 3. Set thrust index as appropriate. So I've got written here, set the thrust index as appropriate. Refer to the thrust index table in the manual. Refers to outside air temperature and altitude. Examples at 1013 barometric pressure, 20 degrees centigrade, 0 foot is 170. So it already says 170 on these. So we're in the right ballpark, I think. Refer to takeoff data card, center of instrument panel for flap configuration and rotate speeds. So we got the rotate speeds there. I think if we click on this, it should arrange them for us. Right. At least I think that's what happens. Yeah, it's moved the markers there. Okay, so we want flaps 11. So if we go and look down here, we can actually move the flaps. He says, famous last words, there we go, 11. Okay. So back on the central setting here, we're going to remove the gust lock by pushing the knob down. Going to go back to the lights section on the front of this, which is across here. I'm going to turn the anti-collision top and bottom lights to on. Then central pedestal, Control 6 on the forward section of it. Booster pumps. This is where I'm going to start to not remember where things are. So you have to bear with me for this. The left booster pumps forward and aft to on or forward. So that's here. And the right booster pumps to on. So Control 9, overhead on the engine section, second column in the middle, starter master to on or up. So start master to on. So left engine start, so we go overhead, start selector to engine number 2, so that goes here. Then we monitor the gauge for 50%, so here we go on the RPM. Oh sorry, no, for 15 or 20%. There we go, it's gone to 20%, then we can go for start on the fuel and it will continue on. And then when it gets to 50% we move the valve to open. So we're just waiting for the needle to whiz round. Okay, then the same deal for engine number 1. So let's do this just by moving the view around, if we can remember how to do that. So there we go, up here we move start master number 1, goes on. So we're waiting for the RPM to get to 20%. When it gets there we can advance the fuel lever to start, or the fuel valve lever. So there we go. So until we get to 20%, that's just the APU is spinning the engine up. Once it gets to 20%, by moving the fuel valve we're actually kicking off ignition, as well as injecting the fuel obviously. So then it comes up towards 50%. And we can advance it all the way forwards. So Control 9 to go back overhead, and we turn start master back to off, so that can come off. APU section, Gen 3 can go back to off, which is its middle setting. The air can go to off, and the main can go to off. The air conditioning, third column at the top, right main to on. Overhead, Control and 8. On the engine anti-icing section, which is down here, oh that's pitot heat, sorry, engine anti-icing, here we go. So both to auto or down, so that one and that one. Windshield heating, both to low, they already were. Pitot and vane heating, both to on or up. It's quite involved, isn't it? Okay, we've already done the flaps to the correct setting. We can monitor the flaps. We asked for 11 degrees, didn't we? And there's a needle here that shows you that, or a gauge. So trim, set trim as required, typically 5 units nose up. So we can see that there, and it's on just under 5, which is good. So Control 7 and look up or zoom out, and we can go and turn the taxi light to on or up. And we can go and taxi out basically. So let's go and have a look on where we are on the airfield. We want to go to 08. We can go from B though. We don't need the full runway. So let's turn left to give ourselves a nice turning circle. So off the parking brake, ease the throttles forwards. Start our turn immediately. Shall we look outside? just going to go and check those lights. So we've got anti-collision lights on. We haven't got strobes on yet. We've got the nav light on. Taxi light is on. That's all looking okay. You'll notice I'm not doing this with head tracking. I think it gets in the way sometimes. Although it is quite useful for taxiing. So just to prove it is here, I could go and centre it up, and we've got head tracking if we really want it, which is quite useful sometimes. But when you're fiddling with a big jet, it's actually a hindrance sometimes. Okay, so we're just going to taxi out. So you'll notice if we go and have a quick look, we're going to go for B, so we're going to do an immediate turn here. It's been a very long time since I've had a go in this aeroplane. So once we turn the autopilot on, it will go into pitch and roll hold mode. So we need to be careful about attitude as we switch on the autopilot. So I'm just going to hold short here for a moment. We're not exactly on the hold line, but we're going to go and make sure that damping is switched on for the autopilot. Now we're going to put the transponder to on now. So stand by. Let's just go and lean over to this to have a look at it. So it needs to go to on. We're going to go and make sure the landing lights are on now. So we're going to go and, oh, they're down here, aren't they? I keep forgetting this. So, and extended. Going to turn the strobe light on. I think that's good to go. And then finally, or not exactly finally, but we're going to turn the weather radar on. It will say warming up, but I don't think it's actually operable, but we'll soon find that out, won't we? Set the range as required, so say if we said 25 miles. Okay, so should be good to go. So off the parking brake again. Just check the volume levels so you can hear the airplane doing something as well as me talking. So gear limit is 200 knots, it's worth knowing about.
Come through, please take your seats for takeoff.
He's a bit late with that announcement, isn't he? Steering slightly. It's quite a strong crosswind.
Rotate.
Okay, gear up. And flaps up. And
Set climb power.
we're still on full power at the moment, so if we just look down, we can go and engage the autopilot now, and it will immediately go for roll and pitch. So we'll just hold heading. You can see we're coming up towards, or through 200 knots, towards 250. We can move the indicated airspeed to hold the speed on the climb if we want. If we go to indicated airspeed mode, it will maintain the speed using pitch to do so out towards the target altitude. So you can see it's just adjusting itself to do that, to hold the speed. So we could do that to just under 250 knots. So it will drop the nose to get to the speed. Let's have a look at the engine gauges and see what we're doing. So, just dropping the throttles a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we will now see, we're showing 73 miles to the first radio beacon, which is good. Coming up through 7,700 feet, and if we have a look on here, on the information for the airport, I think it's on the weather page actually. This is, oh, we're showing the wrong airport at the moment, so Exeter, weather. Transition altitude was only 3,000 feet, so we can immediately go for standard barometric pressure, so that's going to be 2992. And I'm not sure if this synchronises it. No, it doesn't. It helps if you turn the right knob. So that's put the weather on the correct, also the barometric pressure to the correct setting. Coming up towards 10,000 feet, we're not going to be going fast enough to break 250 knots today. You can see we're slightly off, but we're close enough to the beam to go to beam mode. So we can put the flight director on as well, which will reflect that. You can see the pitch command is a little bit out, so we'll just bring that in line with what we're actually doing, so we can see the flight director lines up. So if we come through 10,000 feet just, so the landing lights can be retracted and turn back off. The taxi light can come off. And we're on our way. So you can see the lights down here reflect that we're in VOR lock mode, for both on the flight director and the autopilot, so they correspond with each other. And we are pretty much flying that track that we wanted to be flying. There we go, look, we wavered a little bit off it while we were on heading hold, just because the wind was pushing us away. But now we're going back towards the 81 degree track, and we can see that reflected on the course. So we're looking good. And the weather looks interesting. I wonder if it will show up on the radar. If this is, I don't think this is operative. Yeah, I'm not going to fiddle around too much with it. So flaps are up, gear is up, lights are configured, tracking on the autopilot. So at this point I'm going to pause until we get a bit closer to Southend. So I'll be doing a bit of VOR hopping along the way. I guess when we get to the, now which one is that, the Mayfield VOR, that's about the time I'll unpause the simulator for you. Okay, so let's have a look from outside. I'll see you again soon. Hello. So as you can see, we are bearing down on the Southampton VOR at the moment. So we're going to prepare to switch over to look at the Midhurst VOR, which is 114.00. So what we've done is tuned in 114.00 on nav2, and when we get, you can see on the HSI at the moment, on the selector switches here in the middle of the master control panel, it's set with nav1 is depressed at the moment. So we're going to depress nav2 when we get down to just a few miles left to go. I mean, we could probably do it now, to be honest. So we want 77 degrees as our course though. So if we go to Nav2, you can see it's picked it up, but the course is wrong. We want 77. In fact, that is looking very, very wrong. So let's go and tune, just to try this out. I'm just wondering if there's a bug. 11400. And that's looking a lot better. Of course, yes. Not a bug at all. We haven't set the correct course for Nav2, so there we go, 77 degrees. There we go, it just shows how rusty you get, how quickly you become rusty. So, and because we're within a dot on the beam, we should be able to just switch on beam mode again. So now the lights, well, we've got ice detected, so we're in cold cloud. So what we need to do is go up to the icing switches. So you can see engine anti-icing here. So we're going to go and turn it on just in case. It was on auto. So actually, yeah, so we don't need to worry too much about it. It'll kick in when it needs to, so you'll see the needles shooting around on their own. It's quite cool how it does that. So you've got wing anti-icing though. If we go and scoot over there to look at the switch settings, it's on off at the moment, so we do need to go and turn that on. And that will turn on the heating of the wings. So just while we've got the... Oh, how typical is that? The ice detect light has gone back out again. So it's extinguished itself. So if we turn that back off for the moment, or sorry, the ones up here we need to turn back to off. So yeah, we're back out of the cloud. Look, there was just some cold cloud we were in. We're now lined up and flying off towards Midhurst. So it's going to be the same story all the way across, to be honest. So we can tune in Mayfield if we really wanted to, and we could join that radial early. So let's see Mayfield's range. It's only 60 miles though. Do you think we're 60 miles away yet? So let's try it, 11790. Let's see if this needle moves when we tune in Nav1 to 11790. So we're using Nav2 to navigate, so we're changing Nav1. Yes, it's picked it up, look. It's put the distance measuring has kicked in. So, on Nav1, we would like the course to be 94 degrees, so we could scoot across and join the 94 degree radial now. So if we went 94, and if you imagine we're going to turn our heading mode, we'll go to heading mode on the autopilot, and we'll turn the heading to 60 degrees. Ice detectors come back on, so I'm just going to go and turn on the anti-ice. So what we're doing here is we're flying across, but we're going to go and switch to Nav1. So you'll see once the needle drops in on the CDI, inside that closest dot, we can go to beam mode and capture. I think we can do beam and heading, yeah. So as soon as it picks up beam, it will drop heading. Or as soon as it locks onto it, I should say. So we're using heading mode to set our intercept course for the beam. So what we've effectively done, if I put a line on the chart here, oh, slightly wrong place, let's go from there. So we've extended this 94 degree line, look. So we're flying out towards it, and when we hit that line, the CDI will be in the middle. This is really just a bit of fun navigation to fill the time. So ice detect has gone back off, so we can go and turn that back off. Cruising along 18,000 feet, we're only doing about 220 knots. We pulled the engines right back actually. Should we let's push the throttles forward a bit. So you'll see the indicated airspeed slowly edging forwards now. And we're making the turn. Look, we're coming onto that 94-degree line. So the beam has captured and it's dropped heading mode. Very cool. So in exactly the same way we can now tune to the next VOR, which would be Detling. So the Detling VOR 11730. So at the moment we're using Nav 1, so we can go to 11730 on Nav 2. And it's picked it up already, look. Even all this way out. That's incredible, isn't it? So what's the range on Detling? 60 miles. I guess we are probably about 60 miles out or thereabouts. So we're right on the limits of its range. When we want to go towards Detling, we'll want to be going towards it at 46 degrees. Yeah, and so we've tuned it on Nav 2. We're using Nav 1 so we can get this ready ahead of time. So we want 46 degrees. Go. So when we do switch over to using Nav 2, it will be correct. So we're following the 94-degree track into Mayfield at the moment, and we have 30 miles to run until we get to it. Ice detectors come back on, having all sorts of fun and games with the ice, aren't we? I'm inclined to leave it on, you know. We will need to think about descending. Perhaps when we get to Mayfield we'll start descending. Let's get rid of that measurement, don't need it anymore. Okay, so I'm going to pause again and I'll give you a shout, or I'll unpause I should say, when we get to Mayfield and start descending. Okay, see you in a few minutes. Okay, you're back with me again. We are just approaching the Mayfield VOR, so we're preparing to do this left turn towards Detling and to begin descending, so it should become a bit more interesting over the next few minutes. So let's have a look in the cockpit. You can see we're 10 miles out from, if you can zoom in so you can see that, 10 miles out from the VOR. We will be changing from a 94-degree heading to a 46-degree heading, or course I should say, when we get there. So ice detector keeps bobbling on and off all the time, so I'm leaving it on. Down to 8 miles to go until we get to the beacon. You can see the speed is stabilised at about 250 knots on the thrust we are using at the moment, so we're about 85% on the throttles. Six miles, 5 miles. So what we could do is go to heading mode now. I've lined the heading up, so we'll go to heading mode and then we'll switch to Nav 2 and you can see the CDI. So as we approach the line, we can start turning the heading knob and that will get us in the ballpark pretty quickly. So we'll start doing it now. So you can see the number here. We are away from Nav 1. So we can go back to beam mode and it should capture automatically. Okay, so we need to start thinking about descending now. So let's go and set this down to straight down to our approach height, which will be 2,500 feet. Okay, thus the height will come into the ILSer, and we're going to pull the throttles back and go for IAS mode. Now I've pulled the throttles back too far, which is why you're hearing that buzzer. So I've just increased them gently. So you can see the aircraft is attempting to stabilise, holding the indicated airspeed we've asked for. It's sometimes quite difficult to see which of these is lit up, so we have clicked on indicated airspeed mode. It's not very good at holding it, so we do need to keep an eye on it, and it's quite slow at reacting, and we may need to help it a little bit. If we use spoilers, obviously you can see the nose dipping, look, because the aircraft thinks it can descend more quickly. So I'm going to use spoilers. I think we're going to need to. The ice detector switched off, so we can go and turn that off as well. So obviously with spoilers the aircraft can descend more quickly without accelerating. So let's see how we're doing on the map. We may not get down quickly enough, you know. We may have to do an orbit. Unless we chuck the spoilers out completely, which will obviously expedite the descent enormously. So let's see how it goes. 16,000, 15,000 feet, and dropping. So we'll prepare on nav 1 the ILS frequency. So we want 11135 and 53 degrees. So 53. And 11135. So we're on, we could align heading mode and use that. Could fly headings for a moment, but we won't for the moment. We'll just let it carry on following in. Got 8 miles to run until we get to the VOR. You can see that happening on the map. Down to 13,000 feet, and we're still dropping quite quickly. Managing the descent. Remember, we have to have be below 250 knots, below 10,000 feet. Also, the landing lights should come on at 10,000 feet. So we've got another 1,000 feet for that. Something else that would be worth looking up is the Southend barometric pressure 1019 or 3009. And we need to do that at 6,000 feet. So just coming down through 10,000 feet, so landing lights can come on. Continuing to descend, we're at 250 knots, which is absolutely fine. We'll lose a lot of that speed when we level out. Okay, so we're going to turn left now, 343 degrees. See where we put that heading bug. 340. We want a few more degrees than that, please. There we go. So we've overshot it slightly, but it doesn't really matter. So we're just in heading mode now. We can leave this VOR on the radial if we want to be super accurate about this, or we could just turn a little bit across our path down to 7,000 feet. This is going to be a bit of a, yeah, we're going to have to do an orbit. So if in doubt, in these circumstances, and this is typically what ATC would do, you know, we're obviously too high, we're not going to get to 2,500 feet for the beginning of the ILS. So there's multiple ways of doing orbits. In a more manual aircraft like this, you can just keep spinning the heading knob while you're in heading mode. So we'll come off the spoilers. So we're still descending, but we're going to do an orbit to get to 2,500. So the aircraft's going to do a big circle and then we'll rejoin the track we were going to be doing. So we want to end up, I guess, about 330 degrees would be perfect. I don't think you can control the bank angle in this aircraft, which is a bit of a shame. So we just keep moving this until it's back round to 330, which will be the direction we want to exit on. Yeah, so we're about 2/3 of the way on the target heading. We're down to 5,000 feet, so let's say we want to come down to 200 knots while we're doing this. And we can put the spoilers out to help us do that. Speed isn't coming off in a hurry, is it? The nice thing is because we are slowing down, the turn radius is tightening. So we needed to change the barometric pressure, didn't we, to 3009. Could it change in the altitude? And that's the same. So they are synchronized. That's interesting. Didn't look like it earlier, did it? So we're coming down towards 2,500 feet, and we are on the. Oh no, we're not on the course we wanted. I've forgotten to move this round to 330. Got interested in other things, which is fine. We've just got a not very good orbit. So do as I say, not as I do. But that has given us the opportunity. Look, the speed is now reduced to the target. But it will not hold it now, because we've gone back into height mode. So we need to keep an eye on that. But look how much tighter the radius is. So if we go to nav 1 now, we can see that's the runway orientation to us. Yeah, because we've got the runway direction 53, or the ILS direction 53 degrees pre-programmed in. So we're in heading mode. So what we're going to do is put this into glide slope auto on the flight director. We'll line up the pitch command with 0. We're below 200 knots now, so we can go for gear down.
Flaps 11.
We can go for flaps 11. We can turn on the taxi light, which means it will light up the nose as well. We get all of the lights showing. Now notice the speed is dropping off now. That's because the aircraft's much more draggy. So we're increasing the throttle to hold our airspeed. Okay, so you'll notice as we come into line with the ILS, this will pop in and we're going to start turning towards it already. Now you can see we are below the glide slope at the moment. So we can put glide slope mode on, and we'll go for beam mode as well when we're close enough to the CDI. So we're putting the airplane 2,500 feet above airfield elevation and in the right kind of place and the right kind of direction, and then it should be able to pick up the beam and the glide slope. So we have to come in from below the glide slope, remember, so we're flying level into the glide slope. We're holding about 155, 160 knots, which is perfect. 111 degree flap at the moment. We are slowly losing speed. We lost some speed in that turn, but we're getting it back. As you can see, we're intercepting. It's a strong crosswind. So we're going to start turning ourselves more. Here comes the CDI. Inside the dot, we can go for beam mode. And now we're just managing, you see the airfield out there. Now we're going to be managing the approach. So just speed and aircraft condition. So let's start slowing down a little bit to 140 knots and get the flaps all the way down. Should have a look from outside. Oh, the spoilers are still out. Just shows you can get wrapped up. It's so difficult sometimes to explain and talk and do all at the same time, and you end up dropping the ball, or I do. So you can see now the CDI and the flight director and the autopilot agree with each other. So they both think they're doing the same thing as each other. There's the runway, and you can see the nose is dipping. It's captured the glide slope. It's gone slightly above it, look. So it's playing catch up, so we need to keep an eye on that. And we're going too fast. Obviously it dropped the nose there. And once we release the air brakes.
Flaps 25.
So what have we got the flaps on at the moment? Yeah. There we go. So yeah, as I was saying, it's very, very difficult to fly, talk about it, explain it and do it all at the same time. And I tend to record things in one go. So you'll see the mistakes. So you'll see me drop the ball now and again. I think it's quite funny when it happens.
Speed.
So you can see we're getting too slow.
Speed.
You need to be faster than 120.
Speed.
So we're just going to increase the throttle slightly.
Speed.
Ideally you want about 130 to 140. So if I zoom in slightly so you can see this on here. So at this point I am going to remove the autopilot. So this is me now, just wiggling the wings to prove it. So we're looking at the CDI and the glide slope and just following it in basically and controlling speed as we go. A little bit low, so we'll just hold the nose gently and got 2 whites, 2 reds on the PAPI lights. We're slightly drifting off to the left, so we'll just correct that gently. Here's the marker.
Glide slope.
We're a little bit below the glide slope. I think it's deviating. Look, the PAPI lights agree with what we're doing. So I don't think the glide slope's in the right place. the wind getting under the wing. That was dangerous. Oh, we've got an enormous crosswind. It was trying to get under the wing and lift the aeroplane over. I had to put in an enormous amount of aileron then to stop the aeroplane tipping over. That was crazy. But we got down. That's what you get with live weather sometimes, I guess. Just out of interest, I'm going to go look at the weather report. Maybe in those last few minutes the wind has really got up. They're playing the arrival spiel to the passengers about their wonderful stay in Southend. So the landing lights need to come off. I'm not going to be able to do this and steer. This is one of the big problems of a simulator, isn't it? Yeah, look at the windsock. We had an enormous kick of that wind just as around the time we were landing. It was almost horizontal there for a few moments, wasn't it? So I think this is the Pilot Plus version of Southend. It's very, very good. That was quite worrying. As we were just after touching down, I threw some spoilers in and had to feed in more and more and more aileron. I guess in the real world they would have done a go around. They wouldn't have put up with that. They would have opened the throttles and gone around, you know, to get a more stable approach, or maybe even diverted. Are we going to fit past this wing? Past this tail, I mean. Yeah. Plenty of room. Okay, parking brakes on. And in this aircraft, it's obviously, if we went through the whole shutdown sequence, which we're not going to do, because it's quite boring, you would go and put the APU back on, and then you would go and shut the fuel down on the engines, which would shut them down. I'll show you what happens actually. If we cut the engines before the APU is on, watch what happens, because we'll lose power generation inside the aircraft. So it's gone to battery immediately. But we should get some warnings, I would imagine. Never tried this before. So is it going to complain bitterly? We have got the master warning is lit up. Yeah, that's all it's going to do then. But obviously you're going to deplete the battery really quickly doing this, because we've not turned anything off. Anyway, I'm going to leave it in this unsatisfactory state. You can see it's just the aircon system has just died. You can just hear that happening. Bizarrely, the radios are still on. It's quite interesting, isn't it, to see how aircraft behave when you do things you shouldn't with them. So generator can come off. I mean, if we just turn the power off. Interesting, so that's a generator that was still on for the master. So then if we go and turn the battery off, it should just go cold and dark instantly. But obviously there's lots of switches out of position now, so Thankfully this aircraft doesn't simulate, you know, where things were. Otherwise you'd have a real job on your hands to go through a full checklist to make sure all the switches were back where they should be. Anyway, there we go. The Fokker F28. I've not flown it for ages and ages, and as you can see I was quite rusty. And the wind didn't help us. So what is the wind going on today? So we got, it's only saying 10 knots now, but I think it was gusting because at the moment we landed, the windsock, or moments after we landed, the windsock was horizontal. But yeah, it's dipping a little bit now. I think it may have been sort of, you know, 20 knots or so, 30 even. Just that moment when we landed, it got underneath the wing and started to lift the airplane up. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Maybe I should concentrate on one aircraft for a while and become really proficient at it for a change. I mean, I pretty much am with the 737 and the Airbus, but just not with some of these more specialist aeroplanes that require a little bit more, how would you put it, practice. I'll see you again soon. Take care.